Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Anthony, and I'm the writer, director, and DP for Seed Collective's latest film, Spin. Today, I wanted to walk you through a couple of our lighting setups to show you a little bit behind the scenes of how we lit this low budget horror film. If you haven't seen the film yet, go ahead and click the link down below so you can check it out. But yeah, let's get started with a few scenes. So this is kind of one of the first setups of the film. This is where we see our crew out in the hallway, and they're about to break into the haunted apartment. So for this scene, I wanted something that looked kind of like fluorescent lights, something that you would see in a dingy apartment that's not really lived in. So you can see the lighting is kind of coming from this direction, almost as if there's some tubes up in the ceiling. What we used is some newer panels. We had them up on some light stands in the corner, kind of here, just kind of blasting that cooler light. I went with something that matched what fluorescent lights are, usually about 4,700 degrees Kelvin, and that was really it. On the right side here, we did have some negative fill on a stand as well, just to kind of bring in the shadows a little bit on Bessie and Nick's face on this right side. But super minimal setup, just because we were in an actual apartment hallway. We didn't want to set up too many lights, just because in case the neighbors came, we knew we had to move quickly while on set. So pretty easy setup here, nothing much. And then Bessie actually is holding this flashlight right here, which gives us a little bit more fill in the scene, just a little bit more pop of color there. So this is kind of the second shot. This is Jenna as she's kind of breaking into the apartment here. What I really liked about this is, again, we've got kind of that nice fluorescent-y color, but what I did is I had Nick and Bessie both point flashlights at Jenna on the back, just to kind of give her this kicker, as well as a little bit of a rim light on the back of her head. It really worked well because it was a practical in the scene, but it gave Jenna just a nice exposure on the side of her face. And especially when she turned and looked back at Nick and Bessie, you could see the catchlight in her eye from the flashlights. So again, don't be afraid to use your practicals also as lighting. That was a really helpful tip throughout this whole film. We loved using flashlights to not only motivate what the characters were doing, but we use the flashlights to also light the scene. So this is one of my favorite shots that we were able to capture from the film. You can see the trio of characters here have managed to break into the apartment, and they're all being framed by this doorway right here. You can see there's some of this fluorescent-y color still in the hallway, just to carry over from the previous setup. What I've got here is an Amaran 300. No modifiers or anything on it, just pointing directly with the reflector dish behind the three. That way we get a little bit of a silhouette lighting, but it also kind of fills the hallway with that light. Over here, you can see a little bit of spill of blue light. There's actually a doorway right here, and we put another one of those newer panels in there, just blasting a cool 5600 to mimic moonlight, as if it's coming from a window over here. And then all the way in the back, just to give some fill into the shadows down here, so it's not just crushing the blacks, I've got another 150 light pointed into the ceiling. That way we give a whole just kind of boost to the hallway, and a little bit of fill. What I did is I had Nick kind of sweep the whole area. So we got a little bit of light coming here, a little bit of light coming here from that flashlight, just to slowly reveal to the audience where we were in this scene. But again, super simple lighting setup. I think we only had about 3 lights for this scene in total to give this kind of moody hallway look. All right, now we get to the fun stuff. So now the three have found their way to this room where we discover the evil that's lurking in there. So for this scene, it's pretty simple, and this was kind of the final lighting setup that we had for the whole film. You can see here, I've got a practical up in the ceiling. This is an Edison bulb. We took this out of one of the people who live in the apartment, out of their lamp. And all we did was hung it from an extension cord from a C-stand above everyone, kind of in the top, to give this, kind of scary light setup. Obviously, this light is not bright enough to kind of cast this much light into the space. So above this light, what we do have is an Amaran 300C with a mini softbox on it, pointing straight down to the floor. And what this did is it just kind of created this big pool of light right on top of my characters, giving them almost like a top light. What I did have to end up doing, though, is I took some black neg and I wrapped it around the softbox just to kind of extend, almost like a tube on top of the softbox. That way the light pointed straight down and made a circular pool on the floor and didn't spill too much onto the walls here. So this is a close-up of kind of the same setup. This is Nick when he's realizing what's kind of happening in the story. And you can see it's the same kind of setup here. We've got the Edison bulb, and you can see how the light just kind of falls right in this area. Again, that's because literally probably about an inch above Nick's head is the tube of black, making sure that that light doesn't spill onto the backdrop. For this scene specifically, I wanted to kind of give a little more shape to Nick's face, so I do have a black neg on this side, just giving a little more shadow on that side, and I kind of did that for each character on their close-ups. And then for the wide, essentially we took those all away, but for the close-ups especially, I wanted to give a little more wrap to that light on the side of Nick's face. That's pretty much the whole lighting setup for the rest of the film. Not much going on. We really just relied on that 300C pointing straight down onto the talent. I will say sometimes we did get a little bit of dark exposure just because we're in a dark horror movie. So what I did too is, you can see in this shot, we had the 300C above Jenna here, pointing straight down. But then what I did is I had Nick point his flashlight at Jenna's face just to give a different color contrast. You know, the softbox above Jenna was set to about 3200 Kelvin, and that really contrasted nicely with the flashlight that I had Nick pointing. So again, he would point that flashlight at her anytime it was a specific line that I wanted to really read. So that helped a lot with our exposure. And then again, in the back here, you can barely tell, but I've got a small tube light on the back of Jenna and Bessie for their close, just giving a little bit of blue fill on the back of their head here. That way, behind them, there's a window and we can mimic that moonlight coming into the apartment through the window. You can really see that blue light of the kicker on Bessie's hair right here. Just because Bessie does have darker hair, I wanted to make sure that it didn't just kind of fall away into the shadows. So again, I've got that tube light pointed this way, just mimicking the moonlight coming in from the window. And then I've got of course, the 300 again at the top here, pointed straight down, giving us a little bit of that butterfly effect in the nose. And then over here, I've got just a black neg again for getting those shadows. So pretty consistent lighting setup between the three characters. It pretty much consisted of our main key being the top down. Then we've got a neg coming into one side of the face just to shape the face a little bit, wrap it around. And then finally a kicker on the right side, or then a kicker here on the left side of Bessie. I did that for Bessie and Jenna. But for Nick, I didn't want to have that look for him, since, you know, if you've seen the film, there's some scary things going on with Nick. So for Nick's shot, especially here, you can see it. I didn't really do a kicker on the back of him. Pretty much just the key coming down with a little bit of negative fill. That way he had a little bit of a different look than the other two, just subtly hinting at maybe this guy, isn't doing so great. There you go, just a few lighting setups for my recent short film, Spin. If you haven't checked out the film yet, go ahead and click the link down below. I'd really appreciate the support. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Seed Collective YouTube channel. You can keep up with our latest short films coming out soon, as well as behind the scenes content like this. But until then, we'll see you next time.